Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. And we recently had got into a couple of watch videos that I did in which I was speaking about helping out a friend who was looking for some advice in terms of buying a new watch, which he ended up buying a new watch. And, I was glad I was able to kind of help with that. And he ended up buying a Longines watch. And you could check back at the video on that where I discussed about me helping to do some research, help him find that. And help give some ideas of what he settled on. In addition to that, I then later on did a video of my entire watch collection and my watch journey and kind of where it took me and whatnot. Because as we always mentioned on the show before, as far as accessorizing, that is always a nice thing for someone to have a watch. So I wanted to just kind of detail my watch journey. But two watches that I didn't have at the time to put into the video that were from my collection was the first watch that I purchased with my own money, which was when I was like in high school, maybe like 11th grade. And then my father's watch, which was really the watch that I always used as like a bar or like kind of got me into the idea of wanting to get into watches at some point down the line. Like that was always like, I gotta have that kind of watch, which you guys had seen in the video where I did my collection. I have a Datejust, a more current modern Datejust of my own, but this was what inspired that and why this was always like my favorite watch because of his watch. So first I'm going to just jump into this watch because it came first and then get into this watch later on. This one, the batteries do not work on it. That's something that I'll see if I get that taken care of, but then we're going to really go into all the dynamics of I love this watch when I first got it, and I still think it's a great watch, and I'm glad that I still have it because for a time period I couldn't find it. So this right here is, so I had a reference number on this. No, I'm sorry, wrong thing. I wrote a couple of bit of information on it that I was able to find out later on, but to be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure on how accurate these numbers are, but I believe that they are to the best of my knowledge because I didn't have boxing papers with it at the time of me getting this watch from my dad. So the model on this is 16220. It's the tapestry dial, which was interesting enough because after I saw this, I used to just call it like a champagne dial because for the most part, the color is like a champagne color style, if you will, or colorway, at least that I know of. I don't know if it officially is or isn't because, as I mentioned, I don't have specifically any kind of boxing papers that kind of went really along with it. I actually did find some kind of boxing papers, but I don't know if they were the official original or whatnot. But I love that dial type, and it's funny because this actually threw me off in terms of realizing what's available, because when I went to go buy my own modern Datejust as a accomplishment kind of piece and finally getting to that place, the colorways that they had, they didn't have all these kind of tapestry and even the well, in terms of design way, if you would call it that, they didn't have tapestry colorway, they didn't have champagne. So that kind of threw me off because that was my ideal. This is known as the engine turn bezel. They don't make this type anymore. It's not fluted, but back then I just assumed once I learned about the Datejust that it was fluted, and then I learned that it wasn't, that it was a difference. Let me zoom in a little more. That it was a difference, and that is known as engine turn, which I think looks very nice, but it's different from being dressy. I kind of wonder where their mindset was when they created that, because you have your regular domed type, which is just a smooth round surface. You have fluted and you have engine turn, and it's like, well, is engine turn supposed to be anything in the realm of dressy, or is it supposed to be hinting at more of like a brutal kind of, like rough industrial type of aesthetic? I'm not really too sure. So that's interesting. Obviously you can see this is dated. I dated this at 1987, and I could be a little off, but you can see here how, during those times the watches were done differently. But what's going to be interesting too is you're going to see that this watch has certain things that are kind of similar in terms of stamp bracelet back then and whatnot. And obviously when you get to modern times now, you'll have some cheaper watches that have stamp bracelet, but back then all watches would have things like stamped Clasp, I meant to say stamp clasp. You could see the bracelet is a Jubilee bracelet. It's definitely stretched, but that was something that came along with these watches at the time. Some people feel it as part of the charm. To the best of my knowledge, this watch has either never been serviced or it's been, or at least it hasn't been serviced after the time of I want to say like maybe 97. So but it works. And funny enough, when I purchased my actual Datejust, the modern one, off the top of my head now, I can't remember the reference number on that. I think it's 116. It's a 6-digit number one, where there's a 5-digit number one, but I forget off the top of my head. This one actually kept a better time by a little bit. Like they both were COSC level. This one kept better time. I think it was off by maybe like 1 second per day. And then my modern one was brand new, was like maybe off by maybe like 3 seconds a day. So that's crazy. Yeah, but this, I just love this watch. And the color, I feel like the champagne color is not coming up on screen the way it is for me off camera, but it's just very nice. They used the little pips for the lume, but obviously that is gone now. This will not shine in the dark at all. So those things have an expiration date. I don't know if newer versions of that now are made to last longer, but you could also see too, the writing on it, superlative chronometer, officially certified, Datejust Oyster Perpetual Rolex. So you got the crown at the top and everything. So that's the way it was. This is a dome, not dome. Is it considered dome? Not dome. No, I'm sorry, not dome. I meant to say, I don't know what that term is where it's popping up outside of the realm of the bezel. But I think I used to know that term, but it's been a while since I used to dive into like the watch forums and stuff like that. I used to back in the days, but it's definitely elevated. And this is a, I believe, acrylic type of glass. So it's definitely not sapphire. Back at the time, they didn't really do sapphire. And I think that was part of the charm. Some people look at it like that, even though nowadays you would definitely want there to be sapphire. So that was that. And that's really what inspired me to want to, at some point later on, always be able to get a Datejust, and like inspired the watch journey. When I bought this watch, it wasn't so much going on that journey, but it was just about having, it was in that era where you needed to have something nice on your wrist. Not nice on your wrist, but how should I say this? At the age we were moving away from having digital watches, and I had like digital type of things similar to like Casio. I don't think I had a Casio. I remember having a Wilson watch back in those times. It was like my main watch. And it felt like it was built similar to like, say, it felt similar to being built kind of like a early G-Shock before G-Shock was a thing. And it was nice. It had all those features. We had the buttons on all 4 sides. You had similar to something like this a little bit, but the 4 buttons, all 4 sides. This is not really a good example. You know, that kind of multi screens where one thing will be like the like a circle box. So it was broken up in pieces, similar to most G-Shocks are now. And you'll have like a date in one section. You'll have like a little circular wheel thing in another section that's counting down. I guess it's like for the seconds, and like all these kind of other displays. You have stopwatch feature, all this other kind of stuff. It had a light on it too. And that was great at the time. That was around the time when I remember being in middle school and everyone wanted their watch to beep every hour. And if it didn't, that wasn't considered premium. Oh, your watch doesn't beep every hour? Like your watch is not cool. Getting into high school, it became about, you had to have a watch that was metal, because the idea was, the appeal was not necessarily about, at least at that age and at that time frame, in that era, at least, you know, for that age, you didn't know of what was really considered a premium watch or not, but what you knew was that if you had a plastic on your wrist, that wasn't considered as nice or prestigious as a metal watch. You just had to have a metal watch. It didn't matter what brand was, it didn't matter anything like that. It just had to be a metal watch. Later on, you kind of started learning some brands were considered more prestigious, like things like a Movado at that time. And like I said, this is more on a younger person's level. So we're not talking about Rolex, we're not talking about Omega, all those other kind of things. You know, we're talking about being young. But at that young age, it didn't matter in terms of really the brand. And Fossil was considered a good brand at the time for like our age, and my age at the time. I was like 17 years old, because at that time frame, you know, nobody off their own money was spending like $3,000, $4,000. So this was considered expensive at the time for me. This was $100. Remember, I went into Macy's with my cousin. He bought one as well, and this was $100. So for us, it was like a premium watch, and I loved wearing it. I remember when I had it, it felt good wearing it. Metal watch, you know, like I said, leaving that plastic era, digital era, nothing wrong with that. But for that time and being young, it felt like you were stepping up. You can see here, you have the stamped clasp. You have the kind of more sporty lock right there. And I wore this watch for many years later. At the time, it's like now that I'm into watches, a stamped clasp, even especially one that doesn't even have a sheen on it or shine, is considered like less appealing, at least to me. But then at that time, this was just considered premium because there was nothing else. You know, you didn't make, at least within that price range or anything I seen, you didn't have non-stamped clasp. And understand too that even though this is an older date just here, from my knowledge, even a Rolex had a stamped clasp. So I was like, okay, so this was considered like what you had. Here are my links. They were nice. I definitely beat this up a little bit. Let me zoom in. Definitely got really beat up, but I used to wear this all the time. And even to the point of my younger adult age, I used to wear this all the time up until my late 20s. And I used to beat it up, but it was my daily wear. Like I said, I wasn't heavy of a watch person at times. So I just wore this all the time. And you could do that, you know, if you're into the space of watches, you could do that. But I definitely would say that if you had a watch when you were younger, and then now you're in your mid-20s, you definitely get a newer watch just so it won't be beat up. And maybe it could be the watch that you wear when you're not doing things that beat it up. Because I really was using this for everything, even things that were really beating the watch up and scraping it up, which you can see on the glass is completely scratched up. But it's fine. I'm not going to replace it. I didn't even realize at that time, too, when I was younger, on the features that this watch has. And now that I'm into watches, I actually really like the features that this came with. Obviously, it's a quartz watch, but some of the features that it came with now that I see are actually impressive to me. I'm not one of those watch snobs, so to me, there are little things about a watch that can impress me, even though it's not an expensive watch brand. This was from their Blue line, 50 meters water resistance, which is enough that you could wash it in the sink and you didn't have to worry about, you know, any issue with it. At the time when I had this watch, I didn't realize that I had and I don't have the instructions. This doesn't have a battery in it, so I wouldn't even know how to work it anyway. But it has a diving, I don't want to call it a diving bezel, but a timer bezel, we'll call it. Which at that time, I wouldn't even realize the purpose of this. Now I understand what it's for. It's for timing things. Now, granted, because it's all metal, which I actually prefer that from a standpoint of being more appealing visually, without having a lume pip, it doesn't serve that purpose for, you know, diving, even though it's not a dive watch, but even if you want to use it in any capacity like that. But nonetheless, you have that unidirectional bezel action, and it's not a great action, to be honest with you. But then again, this is a very old watch at this point now. Like I said, I bought this in like 90, 98, maybe 98, 99. The clicking sounds nice, but it has a lot of play. Like after you reach that point, it's got a lot of play to go back, which you could see when I get close to the 60 mark. Look at all that play that it goes back. So it's, that part is, and I don't think that's just from time. It probably was always like that, but I don't remember. It doesn't have a battery, so I can't really go through all of the functions on it in terms of moving them around, but you had the date feature, and the date and the day feature, which, like I said, back then, I never had those set. I never even paid attention to it. I always had the timer set, but I never had those paid attention to as far as having those set. And I think that's like an awesome feature as well in this watch, especially at the time I had it and for my age and whatnot. But I didn't also realize it had an AM PM meter or subdial, which in hindsight, like I said, I probably had this on the AM when it was the PM. That is a feature now that I think is just, when I look at it now, I'm like, that's an awesome feature, because it helps you know when you are either at 12 p.m. or 12 a.m. when you're setting the time, which then allows you to know if the date's going to cross over when you're switching the time. You could just watch it cross over, but it just kind of lets you know where you're at in terms of AM, PM, which is great. So I think that was really cool of a feature there. Let's see, does that thing move at all when I turn it? I don't know. This watch probably definitely would need to be serviced in some kind of way. Maybe one day I will do that. I don't even know how to maneuver the functions on this, what these little buttons do. I don't even know. I think this one turns that one, and this one turns this one turns the day. I mean the date, and this one turns the day to some degree, but I think where it's at, it's not gonna move. I don't know how to get I guess the AM, PM one is just automatic. Let's see when it crosses 12, if that changes. It's got a very slow turn to it also. Like I said, I loved this watch back in the days, and looking at it now, I appreciate it more for what it was. Let's try to go around one full more time just to see if it will change that, because I'm not really too sure. Or if it needs a battery to actually change that. That might be what it is. To actually make the mechanism work, it needs a battery. Yeah, it probably needs a battery to actually make that happen. I really can. Let's look at the back real quick. The reference number on this. Hard to see. Sorry about that, you guys. BQ9013. And if you go on eBay, you can find some of these blue line ones. And I remember one time I was trying to look it up because I didn't remember what the reference number was, because I lost the watch for a while, and then I ended up finding it one year just in some boxes, and I was like, oh, there it goes. But yeah, like I said, this watch, the features I really appreciate it. I appreciate the enjoyment I had with it. So it's just one of those watches that obviously I would never sell because I wouldn't get any money from it anyway, but I just love it. I look at the design too. I actually really like the design on it. It was very slim, but felt beefy. I like the curves on it. Even looking at it to this day, I really like it. Sorry that the video is so long, you guys, but I like it. And even though it's funny, it doesn't have solid end legs, but the way it's done, because the link is like just right there, but even the way it's done. Now this is, even though it's not a, what's the term I'm looking for? When the bracelet, integrated bracelet, but to a degree it almost is, in the fact that you can't put another bracelet on this. I mean, if you did, it would have to hang straight down like that, or like maybe a rubber type, it still wouldn't even work. You really can't. So yeah, like this is the only bracelet that it can have, but still nonetheless, I think it's nice. It had almost a Jubilee-ish like vibe to it, but not quite. I really like this watch. So anyway, guys, sorry for the ramble and whatnot, but just wanted to kind of go down that memory lane of these watches, because I always kept on saying in like 2 watch videos, hey, I'm going to remember to put this watch into the video, and I forgot to. And then this one I didn't have. I couldn't find it until recently. I found it in some of my boxes, which I was moving around before, and I wasn't sure. I knew I had it somewhere, but I wasn't sure where. And then finally going through some boxes, I found it. And so I wanted to bring that to the channel because, like I said, it inspired that whole, my watch journey. These were 2 very pivotal watches in that watch journey, if not probably the most important watches in my watch journey, were these 2 watches. The one that kind of inspired me, and the one that was my first watch that I purchased with my own money that made me feel like I had a premium watch when I was at a young age. My first, me feeling like I had a premium watch, may not have been a premium watch before that time. And to a degree, it was a premium watch for a 17-year-old who, you know, spending $100 on a watch was a big deal from his own money. That is a premium watch, you know. Obviously, as you get older in life, there's different levels of premium. But in high school at that time, none of the kids that I grew up with Like if they were into having a watch, they would have something on that level. If not, most of them had just a plastic watch that was probably like $10, $15, whatever the case is. You know, the Casio watches back then were cheap even then. Obviously a premium Casio would have been like the calculator watch, which my brother had. Now that, you know, our parents bought us that. He bought him that. I didn't get that. I got a different watch at the time. I had a Sergio Valentino, I think it was, a calculator watch. So I got like the bootleg. They were a known brand at the time, but not really for doing watches, but they were a known brand at the time. I forget all the different things they made. I'm not sure if it was clothing or not, but I remember the symbol was like a bull on the head. My brother, because he was older than me, got the Casio one, which was like the premium everyone wanted at the time. But that was predating high school time. So when it came to high school, like I said, having a metal watch was the thing. So that watch was very significant. So these, like I said, are my most significant watches in terms of what they brought as far as the time frame and just the my history with them. Anyway, guys, as always, like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.